Hi, welcome to Zaketissimo. I am Andy and today we are doing the highly requested video on how I color with acrylic markers. The book I selected is Flaneries Urbanies by Florine Le Richon, sorry. And I selected this page and I want to show you how I color with acrylic markers. But before entering the page, I want to show you my tips and tricks. So, I will not make a numbered list because I will forget on which number I am. So I would say that the first tip would be to start with the background, because when you start with the background, even if you exceed the lines, let's say you have this background, and if you exceed the lines, you can color over them. Just like this, because it's acrylic and you can color over it and it will be opaque. If you also let it dry, they will not interfere with each other. So yeah, first tip. The second tip is you can blend them as long as they are both wet. So as long as both of the markers are wet, you can blend them. I wouldn't recommend this on bigger surfaces because I tried that and it is painful. I would recommend this on smaller surfaces. So you can blend them as long as both of them are wet and you are fast. So you can do this, but you can also take a water brush and just blend that in. Again, as long as both of the markers are wet, you can do a quite smooth transition. So yeah. Another tip is what I did with some flowers. I'm trying to use up my acrylic markers because from Arctics, because I don't love them so much. Usually I use the Guangna ones. I love these ones. So I'm trying to use up the Arctics ones. Let me show you another trick. In a page I had some flowers. So let's say this is the flower and I color blocked the flower. And maybe it dries, maybe it doesn't. But then I just come over with some petals and I come quickly with a brush, a water brush, and just blend that in for that effect. And as you can see, you have to be very fast because these ones already kind of dried. So you need to be very fast, and you can layer as long as you want until you obtain the effect that you want. It's also easier if the paper is a bit wet when you come over with another layer. So this is how I created that effect for the flowers. Like this. And let me show you what flowers I was talking about. These ones here, and these ones here. You can also come over with some white if you wanna. So yeah, you can also leave a space, how I left here, just to like an outline of the flower. So yeah, you can do a lot of things. You can also come with a pencil on top if you want to define something. Here I have the same technique, and also here. So yeah, I did a lot in this book. Okay, next one. Next tip is when you want to have like lights. Let's say this is the sky and you want to have some fairy lights. Let's say we do them with this yellow one, let it dry a bit so they won't interfere with each other. And let's say we have some lights here, let's put 3. I would do like this, and then I would come with these ones. These are just disposable glass utensils, and I use them for small areas for soft pastels. So here are my Faber-Castell soft pastels, and I would just take like this yellow and just do something like this. The darker the background, the better it will look. And then I would also come over with a white, just to put it in the exact center of that white, just to highlight it. And then you would have to immediately fix it, just so the pastels won't run away off the page. So I leave this step for last. This is another effect. For some leaves, let's say this is a leaf. You can also do this effect, like I wanna do a shadow underneath, and just come with the water brush. As long as you are fast and you don't leave the layer too dry, it's not really visible. Let me come with a darker one. I thought this was darker. Let me grab a darker one. Just for it to be visible. See, you need to be very, very fast. But the effect is quite nice. And afterwards you can draw some lines with a lighter one on the top if you want some texture. It's still wet, but let me just show you like this. I don't know. See? Another very important thing, and I feel like this should have been the first tip for acrylic markers. All acrylic marker brushes are like this. They are like a brush. As you can see, this Arctic one is not a good example because the quality is not, I don't love them. Let's see this one. So you see the brush, its form, its shape. Let me zoom you in. This is the brush, okay? And although it looks like a sponge, it has some fine fibers that are directed like this, okay? So I would suggest for you, when you color, to try to color like this or like this, just so you won't interfere with the fibers, because if you do something like this, it would be against the direction in which the fiber is pointing, and you will ruin your brushes. See, this one is in good condition because I always try to color like this or like this, just to maintain the shape and the pointiness of it and to increase its lifespan. So yeah, I recommend you not to color in the opposite direction of the fibers like this. So yeah, please maintain like this or like this. I can't say I always respect this this suggestion, but I noticed that it's better for the brush nib. Okay, other than that, oh, and another tip for these glittery parts. Let me show you one that I've done, because I've done in every page. See here, this glittery part? I just take a white acrylic marker. This is from Daco Acryl, but you can use a Posca, you can use anything. And I just activated it for it to be juicy. And then I take it, I put it closer to my mouth and I just blow on it. See? And if you blow over it while it is juicy, it will create this splatter effect. And if you just want to highlight some of them, you can just go with some dots. You can also create like some stars, maybe not with this chunky one, but with smaller ones. So yeah, this is how I do my glittery bits. And yeah, these were my tips. And another tip would be, when you start coloring with markers these kind of pages, but also especially the color by numbers one, try to remember or to note somewhere what colors you used in each section, because maybe I established that I will use, I don't know, this color for the background on this building, and then I color and I say, oh, I finished with the building, and I put it in her place, but then I notice that I also have this section and this section in the same color, and maybe I need to try to find the same color. So yeah, please note what colors are you using, especially for the bigger ones that need to be the same color. So you won't do like me and try to find the color that you used. So yeah, these were my tips on how to color with acrylic markers. Let me know if you saw any other techniques with acrylic markers on my channel and you want me to show you. Maybe I forgot about some of them. Other than that, I will start coloring this page. I don't know if I will finish it. I will leave you with some joyful music, and other than that, see you in the next one and take care. Bye! So, in fact, I did actually finish it. Went a little overboard with the Posca here on the glittery parts. So, as you saw, I did go over this part with a lighter color because I thought that it would be too dark. And I did stole some colors from this palette, but I did want a more a bigger contrast between some elements, because I loved this contrast. The leaves were so dark near the building and I wanted more contrast like that on this page. So I did do some elements darker than the left side, and I did use the Arctics to my advantage because they aren't as pigmented as the Guangna, so I used the Arctics over all of the rocks here, but as you can see, I could still see the line art, so I did use that to my advantage. You saw how I did these shadows, in which I put pigment either on the page or either on this piece of paper, and then take it with a water brush and just smudge it on the part that I wanted some shadows. What have I done? Oh my god, my hand. Yeah, so this is the page. Oh, I forgot to finish the white here. I'm seeing the difference between the colored white and the bits of white left. Probably it's not visible on camera. Oh, and I also forgot to do the steam on the tea. Okay. And I think it's done. I don't think I forgot anything. I enjoyed it. I enjoy coloring with acrylic markers very much. I do have to comment on the Arctics ones because they are, although they were brand new, they were so dried up and the brushes were not really, I don't know how to say. You saw how they are on the Guangna. They are very pointy and you can do details with them. I really think that I received a used Arctics box for the acrylic markers because some of them were so dried up and some of them weren't dried up but weren't opaque, you saw on this part. So yeah, I will use them on different parts, on what I can use, using them to my advantage when I don't need so much opacity from the marker. So yeah, this is the completed page. Let me know if you like it and please let me know what other tutorials I can do for you. Other than that, take care and see you in the next one. Bye!